The variety of plants available for the interior landscape today is truly phenomenal. Hi, I'm Charlie Sacamano. As you can see around me, there's an enormous spectrum of sizes, shapes, colors, and textures. Well, what this bewildering variety leads us to is the question of which plant or plants is appropriate for a specific place or application. And of course, following close behind is the question of plant identification. That's what we'll look at in this volume of Tropical Plants in the Interior Scape. Given such incredible variety, how do we best select plants for a tropical interior garden? Well, the answer depends on several factors: the needs of the client, the design concept, the interior environment, and the budget available for purchase or lease and maintenance. We discussed those points in detail in Volume 1 of our series, and you may want to do a quick review before moving on to plant selection. But to briefly summarize, the information you need to make good decisions about plant selection will come from a thorough analysis of the site, interviews with the client, and in some cases the interior designer and architect, as well as your own design solution for the project. The design characteristics of plants themselves are what to look at next in making your selection. First, take a look at the question of scale or relative size. The open central area of a shopping mall or multi-story atrium is large scale in comparison to offices or stores around them, which of course are smaller. Next, consider proportion. Dimensions such as height, width, and depth. A hallway may be long and narrow. An office lobby may be square with ceilings of average height. These dimensions are important when selecting plants of specific size and form. A tall, single-trunked corn Dracena would be out of proportion if placed beside a long, low coffee table. It might be a good choice in a narrow hallway where a wide-spreading philodendron would be out of proportion and might even interfere with traffic. A small, delicate table fern would be lost if used as a floor plant beside a heavy, massive chair. Plants are most important elements in the interior landscape. To use them effectively, we must understand something of their design characteristics of form or shape, color, texture, and line. Let's look at form first. The basic shape gives each plant a unique character and silhouette and greatly influences both its functional and aesthetic use in the interior landscape. Plant shapes vary from rounded to oval, mounding, spreading, cascading or vining, rosette, upright, pyramidal, and picturesque. Sometimes plant form is determined by cultural practices. Take philodendrons, for example. Some kinds can be grown as hanging vines or mounding shrubs, and they can also be trained to grow up a totem pole. Also, the form of some plants change as they grow or adapt to interior environments. In some, the crown becomes more open and spreading. In others, the lower branches may be lost. The shape or style of furniture or office equipment can be an important factor in deciding what shape of plant to use. A low mounding plant would be far more attractive on top of a row of file cabinets than a narrow upright plant because it would complement the dominant horizontal line of the files. In mass plantings, avoid combining too many unrelated plant forms. This results in a fussy, confused composition, one that lacks unity and harmony. By grouping plants of related shapes, such as mounding spreading, with taller spreading, perhaps multi-trunk types, or if you want to create a focal point or draw attention, something very vertical, you can create a dramatic design statement, an interior scape of special beauty. Texture is another important consideration in your selection process. Plant texture, whether fine, medium, or coarse, is largely determined by leaf characteristics, but also by stems and buds. This quality of plants can have a very strong impact on interior landscape design. The size and also the spacing of leaves helps determine plant texture. Large, widely spaced leaves appear coarser than small leaves that are close together. Shape and division are also involved. Plants with finely divided or filamentous leaves are finer textured than plants with larger individual leaves. Surface qualities play a textural role. Leaves that are glossy or whitish on one side appear to be finer textured than those that lack these qualities. The texture of plants has a scale relationship to architectural space and detail. A coarse or bold textured plant, such as a fiddle-leaf fig, tends to dominate a small space and actually makes it look even smaller. In the same location, a fine-textured, lacy or airy plant, such as Sansevieria, evokes a more open feeling, a feeling of greater space. Also, such plants blend well with smooth architectural surfaces, delicate detailing. Texture can also be used to create other visual effects in the interior landscape. A gradual transition from coarse to bold-textured plants in the foreground to finer textured types further from the viewer creates the illusion of greater distance or depth. But a word of caution here. Avoid placing a wide variety of unrelated plant textures at random throughout the same planting. A carefully selected sequence of complementary plant textures can help integrate a design, tie different elements together to produce a harmonious whole. However, one way to draw attention to emphasize a location is to introduce a plant or small group of plants of contrasting textures at that point. Density contributes to overall plant textures and has other design implications as well. Densely foliaged plants make effective screens where you want to achieve view control. Plants that have more open foliage have a see-through quality that can be used to advantage where you want to reveal at least something of what lies beyond. Finally, color is a major element of plant design characteristics. A few interior landscape plants, like spathiphyllum and bromeliads, have a significant floral effect, but most plants used for their floral display are quite seasonal. When we speak of the color of interior plants, we're generally talking about foliage color. These range from dark green, which carries a sense of solidity or at times formality, through medium green and to light green, which helps achieve depth perception and expands the apparent size of space. Plants that have gray-green, yellow-green, or red-green foliage can complement or contrast with or accent the colors of the interior decor. Variegated plants, those that have stripes, bands, spots, splotches, or edging, can add interest and accent to a mass planting if used with restraint. The choice of foliage colors in the interior landscape will be influenced by the mood you want to create, and most importantly, by the colors of furniture, carpets, walls, and floors of the surrounding space. An important point to keep in mind: the smaller the scale of the planting, the fewer the shades of green that can be combined and still maintain a sense of unity and harmony. You can play on this point somewhat, though. Plants whose foliage color is distinctively different than that of surrounding plants make exciting accents. Well, those are some of the most important design considerations that affect plant selection. Now, when we get into the area of environmental factors that may influence the kinds of tropicals that we're going to use in interior scapes, nothing is more important than light. We're going to talk about plants that fall into 4 light categories: low, medium, high, and very high. Now, for the exact range of foot candles in each one of those categories, you can refer to volume 3 of this series, which talks about plant growth requirements. Let's start with low light plants. And in that group, we have Aspidistra, or cast iron plant. This is a tropical that has an amazing tolerance of low light and minimum maintenance, and an ability to survive for a long period of time, looking attractive either as a table plant, a floor plant, or in a planter. Some species can adapt to a wide range of indoor environments if properly acclimatized. Other kinds have specific environmental or cultural requirements that must be satisfied if they're to remain vigorous and attractive. Matching plant light requirements and light intensities available in interior locations is certainly a major part of the plant selection process. We don't have precise information on the light requirements of all plant species used in the interior landscape because plant responses to the environment are affected by many factors, but we do have reliable guidelines. We start with the basic assumption that interior-scape plants have a finite lifespan. Sooner or later, most of them will need to be replaced. Our goal is to maintain them in a healthy, attractive state for as long as possible. We know that at any given light intensity, the useful lifespan of a plant can be extended or shortened by maintenance practices like watering and fertilization. And we also know that the lower the light level below a plant's compensation point, that is, the point at which photosynthesis is equal to respiration, the shorter the time that particular plant will remain attractive. This is a tank-type bromeliad called silver vase. It has very beautiful mottled foliage, and it has a floral effect that lasts for quite some time and is very colorful, adds a lot of color to the interior scape. Each of these rosettes will flower just one time, usually when they're about 3 or 4 years old. After the flower fades, the plant may still remain attractive for some time. It's important for long-term good appearance of the foliage to keep the plant in medium to high light. This is Dracena Marginata, Madagascar dragon tree. It's a popular accent foliage plant that over time develops a distinctly palm-like appearance. It eventually develops erect, elongated stems. Sometimes they're twisted and picturesque, topped off with a cluster of leaves at the top. It gives it a very handsome appearance either as a floor plant or in a planter bed. This is a selection of Dracena Marginata. This is Dracena Marginata tricolor. Very handsome plant with its colorful leaves. Has similar requirements and grows in a very similar manner to Dracena Marginata, and also does well in medium light locations. This is Warnecki Dracena. By the way, all Dracenas are in the agave family. This one is distinctively different in that its variegated foliage has 2 white stripes down the leaf. It's usually an erect single stem plant and is often planted as a multiple stem or clump plant. It's slow growing, needs to be kept in medium to high light, makes a fine table plant or can be used as a floor specimen in the larger sizes. This is Dracena Janet Craig. It has rich dark green color. It's relatively pest-free, and it can be an excellent large specimen plant in low light locations. It's really best planted as a multi-stem specimen because with just one stem it tends to look a little top-heavy as it gets to a larger size. Now in the medium light category we have such plants as Dwarf Schefflera with its beautiful dark green glossy leathery leaves. This is excellent as a table plant, a floor plant, or a shrubby filler in a planter. There are a number of cultivars of this low-light foliage plant, Aglaonema. For example, Silver King, Silver Queen, White Raja are just a few. They're all tough, tolerant, and attractive either as table plants, floor plants, or in planters in situations where lighting is dim. Another low-light plant, and probably the best-known indoor ficus, is India rubber tree. There are a lot of improved forms of this plant, and they all have large, shiny, leathery leaves. Another tropical that endures a lot of neglect as well as low light goes by several names, either Sansevieria, bowstring hemp, snake plant, or mother-in-law's tongue. By whatever name you choose to call it, it's an excellent table plant or floor plant that works quite well in low light situations. Kenia, or paradise palm, is a tough, attractive palm that can thrive under difficult growing conditions, including low light. It's excellent as a small table palm, a floor palm, or in a planter. In any of those situations, it withstands a lot of abuse as well as dim light. Bamboo palm is a graceful and elegant cluster-forming palm. It has slender, smooth stems, and they're sectioned at intervals just like bamboo. Now, in time, as this plant matures, a lot of the lower foliage will disappear, leaving whole sections of the stem bare and reinforcing that bamboo-like appearance. This is a palm that needs medium to high light to maintain well for a long period of time. This beautiful compact plant is Sago Palm. Although it's not a true palm, it's actually a cycad, a very ancient and primitive order of plants that were unearthed at the time of the dinosaurs. Very stiff, dark green foliage, very luxuriant and tropical looking. Also a very slow-growing plant. Take a look at the way the foliage develops in this rosette pattern. Only one whorl of leaves is produced each year. This plant will maintain very nicely in a medium light situation for a long period of time. This is Ficus benjamina, or weeping fig. We saw this earlier when we were talking about plant design characteristics. It's commonly used in malls and in other interior situations where there's a need for a graceful and elegant small tree. By the way, it's a member of the mulberry family. A weeping fig has a well-known and strong tendency to defoliate with sudden changes in environment. We know that it likes high-light environments, but if it's properly acclimatized, it maintains very well in medium light situations as well. This is Asparagus Fern. It looks like a fern, but it's not a fern at all. It's actually a member of the lily family. The little green branchlets, they're not leaves, are 3 to a node. In time, in medium light situations, this will develop a beautiful cascading habit, and it works very well as a table plant, particularly as a hanging plant, and even in planters. Now, in good light situations, it flowers. The flowers are rather inconspicuous, but the little red fruits that follow the flowers are actually very nice and quite decorative. It's a plant that needs at least medium light to survive and to look good for any period of time. This is Dieffenbachia, or dumb cane, certainly one of the most decorative leafed plants that we deal with in the interior landscape. There are many forms, many cultivars. They have irregular markings and streaks throughout the leaves, whether they be white or yellow or creamy. A really gorgeous foliage plant. And the interesting thing about this plant is that the plant performs best, and those markings are going to be more intense when we keep the plant in medium light locations. Do you recognize this plant? This is golden pothos. It's really a tough, forgiving vine, and you see it almost everywhere. It looks a lot like and is related to philodendron. It's a very versatile vine. You can use it either as a table plant, in a hanging basket, as a filler or ground cover in planter beds, and on totem poles. The leaf size depends somewhat on growing conditions, including light, as well as the age of the plant and the size of the container that the plant's growing in. These are just 2 examples of spathiphyllum or peace lily. There are a number of hybrids and cultivars that are available in the industry, and there is some difference in size, and you can see that here, both in terms of flowers and the foliage itself. Now, the foliage maintains quite well in a low light situation, assuming that the plant is properly cared for. However, if the objective is to produce flowers, these plants are going to have to be moved into a better light situation, a medium light location, if the goal is to have them flower. Very high light environments are not very common in building interiors, and as a matter of fact, we don't have very many tropical plants that perform well in that situation. However, we do have a number of arid climate species, such as yuccas, certain cacti, and other succulents that are well adapted and do perform quite well under very high light intensities. We've discussed just a few of the wide range of plants available for today's tropical interiorscape. More are being discovered and introduced into the market all the time. While their particular needs vary, the general principles we've discussed of matching plants to the environment and design application will hold true across the board. I'm Charlie Sacamano. Good luck.